Hi everybody, I'm Scott Johnson from Used.ca, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about creating customer success with Twilio Chat and Notify. So first off, a little introduction about Used.ca. Used.ca is a network of local online classified sites, and we're based out of British Columbia, Canada. These sites allow users to buy and sell items and advertise their services in their local communities. We have sites in over 80 cities across Canada and the UK, with approximately 2 million active users, and we're also the largest Canadian-owned classified site in Canada. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Used experience in building our next generation platform of products. I'm going to discuss a little bit of the problems that our business experiences and the types of technologies that we've used to solve those problems. And then finally at the end you'll get a glimpse of the implementation that we use to incorporate, showing some code examples and a bit of a demo. First, I'd like to explain a little bit about what our users want and what the product strategy is that we're going to incorporate to support them. So traditionally, Used.ca's product line has primarily been a growing web-focused product. Users use and love an online classified website, and they're familiar with our platform. We're a known brand to them. We're a trusted brand to them. And because of that, we've experienced lots of growth over the past 15 years. At the same time, we acknowledge the changing landscape of how users want to interact with both us and each other. They want a very simple to use mobile experience. Sellers want quick, easy selling experience, and buyers want lots of inventory. They want a quick mobile access to that inventory, and of course they expect a safe and easy buying experience. So essentially that's the goal of our product. We want to be able to provide the best mobile and social experience possible. So you've all seen this chart before, I'm sure, as most of you are probably developers. The mobile trend is strong, and our user base is no exception. But I just put this up here to give you a little bit of context for what our users are showing. We obviously want to incorporate a mobile-first design strategy in which you design the mobile device first and then expand onto other platforms later. But it's important for us, if you note that there still is a very solid user base that's using desktop devices, laptops, and computers to browse online classified. So we're not going to ignore that user. And you'll see a little bit later in our example how we want to incorporate that kind of chat experience into the into the desktop platform. So now that we've covered the mobile's first strategy, I'd like to expand a bit on what a social first strategy means. And I want to illustrate this with some background on some of the challenges that our business has. The first, and probably the biggest one, is competitor investment. Breaking into new markets is an extremely challenging thing to do. As an example, Letgo, which is a company based out of New York, has raised almost $300 million in investor funding directly in our marketplace since 2015. And they're likely to spend this money in product and mostly in marketing their product to take market share in large global markets. This is a big investment and a very big challenge for us to try to compete against. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it goes beyond just marketing dollars on attracting new users. We need to find other techniques that we can use to acquire new users. We find that users in our industry are very apathetic. They usually tend to use the most commonly used platform in their region, regardless of the product experience. Anyone with experience with Craigslist probably knows this. Craigslist platform has not changed much over the past 10 years, but the markets that they're in, they're very, very, very strong, and it's very difficult to try to acquire some of that market share. So at the end of the day, we ask ourselves, how do we engage more with existing and attract new users in new regions and new demographics? Our answer to this problem is a social-first design strategy. And we want to be able to create the best social experience possible. So what is the best social experience? What does this mean from a user's perspective? Well, with a very large and loyal user base, we're able to leverage our existing users to find out what kinds of things that they want. They're constantly in contact with our CSR and moderation teams, and this team is a great resource for myself as a product manager to leverage because it's the closest thing that I have to direct access to my users. So what does our moderation and CSR teams deal with? Well, they deal obviously with complaints a lot of the time. And what kind of complaints do we see? Oftentimes it's poor communication, it's people who are doing no-shows, and sometimes even gross misconduct. And this type of behavior on an online classified site actually influences us people think of it as the vision of our company when people are behaving this way. So how do we, so we're constantly looking at ways to be able to provide a safer and easier experience for buying and selling. We believe that if we facilitate the communication within our platform, without relying on emails and text messages and phone numbers between users, it's going to be able to provide a much more secure and private experience. People will no longer have to reveal their private information, such as phone numbers and email addresses. And finally, if we facilitate most of the communication between the buyer and the seller, now our moderation team has insight into that communication. And thus, we can keep individuals accountable for all actions on our platform. This is the social experience we want to create, and it's what we mean by a social-first strategy. It's a combination of privacy and accountability and a balance between those two. That's the most important thing for our next generation product. So now that we know we need fully integrated chat, allowing buyers and sellers to easily and safely communicate with one another, we don't want to build this ourselves. Why? Well, chat is not our specialty. We're an online classified sites. We understand the categories of goods and regions and people's interests in goods and services. We're not a chat company. We realize that building out the server infrastructure that's going to be able to be scalable for what we want would be costly and it would take a lot of our development time. Twilio's programmable chat provides a great platform for us to utilize. Our needs for chat are probably not that much different than other people's. So if we just incorporate Twilio's chat, we've basically chopped off a huge part of the development cycle that would be needed for us to be able to build this product out. It's completely cross-platform, and it's also backed with the Twilio cloud infrastructure. So that's where scalability is a big factor for us. Finally, as chat is driven by an API, it means that our developers can focus on what they're good at. And for our developers and our designers, it's the UI and the UX. And they also have complete control of the application that's using this, simply because Twilio's chat is an API. It's not a bolt-on product or a Twilio branded product. It's incorporated and integrated inside our brand and our product. And that's really important to us to make it as seamless as possible for the end users. And then additionally, at the end of the day, our moderation team is going to love the ability to moderate the communications. We've utilized something called webhooks, which is part of the programmable chat API, into our existing moderation tool set, so they don't even have to leave their tool to be able to moderate the site properly. The next piece of the puzzle is targeting some business and user needs at the same time. The question is, how do we deal with user notifications? And user notifications is a big, broad spectrum because it goes beyond just something as simple as email or push notifications, because people have been building that for well over 10 years now. Our business is constantly after higher user extension and creating something called the network effect. So the network effect is essentially the concept of, as more and more users use your product itself becomes more valuable. And that's ingrained in a product like our used classified site. The more people that use our product, the more inventory we have, the more buyers we'll have, and that is the network effect we're after. It's difficult to achieve, but I think that we can achieve it. Meanwhile, users want fine-grained control over how they use our platform. So this is on the user side. They want to be able to configure whether or not they get push notifications, whether they get SMS messages, whether or not they get emails, all of these different avenues, and the types of messages they get on them as well. So if you give them more fine-grained control over exactly how they receive and interact with the product, they're going to be a much happier customer, and user retention will go up. Meanwhile, on our business side, our businesses love to be able to identify interesting events. In our industry, things like surge in posts in certain regions, or classified ads that go viral. We get viral ads all the time, and our marketing department wants to be able to leverage that and try to, get the message out that, hey, there's a viral ad. The notification exchange is also very modular. Both new types of events and messages can be created, and new protocols can emerge, as we saw this morning, with email coming into Twilio Notify. So there's new notification platforms coming up all the time, and if we can leverage something like Twilio Notify, it solves a lot of the problems that the developers will have to encounter. So that's enough from the business perspective. Let's have a little bit, maybe about some code now. Because I know most of you are developers, or I hope most of you are developers. So we're going to show you two different client-side examples of using programmable chat. The two examples are in JavaScript. I mentioned the web focus earlier. JavaScript's a very, very, very important platform for us, and you'll see a really simple example of how to do chat. And then the second example is Xamarin, and in this case, it's Xamarin iOS that you're going to see, and Xamarin's written in C#. These are the two main platforms that we've used to incorporate programmable chat. And for the JavaScript example, we have a running server right there. So if you guys pull out your phones or whatever devices you have, you can actually go to this, and there is a live chat that people can communicate on right now. So hopefully people will join in as we're looking at the JavaScript for that. And then at the end, you'll get a bit of a demo of our implementation of programmable chat inside an iOS platform, using obviously programmable chat and Notify. So let's have a quick look at the JavaScript, and we're going to break this down into 3 basic steps on how to incorporate Twilio programmable chat. Programmable chat, and really it's the same on all platforms you're going to do, whether it be iOS or Android or JavaScript or any integration that you want to use, any language you want to use. The basic 3 steps are always going to be the same. So the first step is obtaining an auth token. The auth token is retrieved with an AJAX request to one of our servers at Used.ca, and it's the only server call that we need to do. The reason why we have to do this is we need to identify who the user is. And this is an important aspect of the privacy and accountability that we have. So by tying in an access token to one of our users, we know who they are, and we can keep that person both private and accountable. And that's really important to us, and that's the first step to building out this platform. Once that request comes back, it's really, really quite simple. We return the identity. You can see in the data object coming back from that JavaScript call is the user of the system. So it's their username. And the second thing is to initialize the chat client with Twilio. That token at that point is the Twilio auth token, and then all future interaction with a server will be done over the Twilio channel, which we're going to see next. So how do you join or create a channel? Well, after initializing the client, we need to be able to join those channels or create them if they aren't already there. So in this example, again, this is a very basic early example. We'll get some more advanced stuff later on. But in this example, the client searches for an existing channel called general. And if that channel doesn't create it, if that channel doesn't exist, then create it. In this case, the general channel is a publicly accessible channel. And that's a type of channel. You can either have public channels or private channels. So in this case, we're going to use a public channel. And anybody can join it. And you'll see that if we head over to, I'm going to get out of this view here. Is this going to be able to display? No, not too bad. So yeah, so basically this channel is just going to ask me for my name. My name is Scott. And now we're going to join the channel, and hopefully other people will be in there. And of course, the live demo isn't working. Let's just try that one more time. Well, we might have hit some sort of limit there. My apologies. We'll have to see what happened. Anyways, let's move on. But essentially, yeah, I mean, it's a very basic chat channel, and this code, honestly, you just saw like pretty much all of the code. It's like 90 lines of code to be able to interact with a JavaScript channel. Okay, so let's move on to the Xamarin example now. So Xamarin, obviously, it's a Microsoft platform for developing iOS and Android native applications. So it's not a hybrid model. They are native applications. They're just built inside the Xamarin and utilize the C# language to develop your mobile device, develop on your mobile devices. But essentially, the three steps that we just talked about, it's the exact same three steps. The first step, in this case, it's a registering of a user. Now, registering of a user is slightly different than the push notification. Registering of a user is slightly different, and we'll get into that. The first two steps are the same, and they're inside that use Twilio.connect call. It's fetch an auth token, and then initialize the client. Exactly the same as we saw before. The only difference now is you'll see right after that, instead of trying to join a channel or trying to create a channel, mobile devices, and specifically in our use case, it doesn't really work that way. People don't want to necessarily have a channel or initialize chats with other users. They want it to be a more seamless experience. And so what we do is register for events that happen. And in this case, we're registering for 3 events. We're registering for ad notifications, seller notifications, and user notifications. So those are notifications that come from both Twilio Notify and from Twilio Programmable Chat. So instead of users joining channels themselves, we initialize the chat between buyer and seller into a private channel remotely on our server. The reason why we do that is because sellers may not want to try to reach out to buyers. It's really the other way around. So the buyer initializes the conversation, but the seller needs to be notified, essentially in real time, that they've been joined into a chat session. So that's what this is doing. When they're registering for an ad notification, they're registering that, hey, I'm a seller of this ad, and I want to be able to connect. Step 2 is essentially the same thing. It's this happens again right after this is inside the app Delegate, by the way, for anybody familiar with iOS development. The app delegate runs right on startup. So as soon as they've started up and they've logged in, we know who they are. So we can actually go off and fetch all of the channels for this user and synchronize all of them. That lets them get all of their messages and all of their chat history in one go right when they start the app. That way there's no lag in them trying to switch between channels, or even not necessarily knowing that a new message had come in until later. We want that right away. We want to be able to notify them as soon as they start the app that, hey, you have a new message. And finally, this is part of our view controller of the chat window. And so the message added function is a call that this is the callback that Twilio calls. And it basically notifies the view controller, the active view controller, that a new message has been added. And so the thing to note about this code is that there's essentially two use cases that happens. One is the user is either chatting to somebody else, and they don't necessarily want to immediately switch over to that other chat, or they are in that chat window and they're talking directly to them. So the latter is actually the first one, because I mixed them up. But so the first, where we're actually adding the message, and then we're going to scroll to the bottom of the chat window, and then we're going to set the messages as consumed. That's if they're actually in a chat window. So that's an active chat window with a buyer or a seller. Really quite simple. The second one's a little bit more complicated, because it means that they were either chatting with somebody else or performing another action inside the app. In that case, instead of taking them to that chat, we give them a notification saying, hey, you've got a new message on this channel, and give them a call to action to actually go and start and respond to that chat message. This gives the user a really good, clean user experience for chat. They don't necessarily have to be switching between chat channels. It's very seamless to them how their communications are organized. And that's really important to us. So with that said, we're going to probably do a really quick demo here, because I don't have a ton of time, of our app. And hopefully this demo works. And I'm going to get AJ to help me out. Come on up, AJ. AJ, everybody. And you are going to act as my buyer?
Yes.
OK, she's going to be my buyer, and this is the buyer device here. So I'll just, sorry. All right, there you go. Yes, so this is our buyer chat window. So this is the app. This is a live app running on the phone that's in front of her. And then I'm going to be the seller. Yeah, you can browse. So she's going to, I can talk because she doesn't have a mic, but she's going to browse. I'm going to be, say, in the app, and you can see from the seller's perspective. Here I am, seller on the left-hand side. I have 200 plus Skylander characters for sale. If anybody has a 6-year-old son like I do, you have a lot of Skylanders in your house. Or maybe you like them. I mean, I'm not going to judge. I like them too. So, and for the record, I would never sell them. So they're not actually for sale. This is just a demonstration. So as a buyer, she's going to browse.
I'm going to go to kids, I assume?
Yes, you're going to go to kids.
And then toys.
Toys.
All toys.
All toys. So there's the Skylanders. So AJ wants to buy them, so she's going to message me over. Now here you can see that there's 3 options. She can email either email, phone, not available because I don't want to put my phone number in there, but she can chat with me. So she's going to chat with me. Can you spell it?
Oops, I'm trying.
There you go. So you'll notice that I got a notification right off the bat. It says I received a new message. I can click on it, and that takes me directly into the chat window. So we were both joined into a Twilio channel. It was actually done on our server. It's a private channel. There's only 2 people that have access to that channel. It's myself and her, with one exception. And I'll show you that maybe if we have time. But so I can now respond to her. How many do you want? So she gets that response, and now we're in a direct kind of, very synchronous, very streamlined chat. These are also stored forever, so you can always go back in. And just one more part of that demonstration, you'll notice that this is our back-end system for anybody that cares. It's not very well designed, but it works. So we can actually go in and see that Skylander ad. And we should see this is myself who just communicated over that. And so as a moderator, I can see that communication and see if anybody had any inappropriate behavior. And again, this was done through what's called the webhooks portion of Twilio Chat, which takes literally like 5 minutes to implement. It's the simplest webhook you'll ever see. And that's about it. I think pretty much out of time. So if you have any questions, come see me after.